Good evening. Hello and welcome to this special edition of Startup Central. I'm Nayantara Rai. Today we're breaking format on the new version of Startup Central, and we're doing it because unusual times call for unusual measures. He used to be celebrated as one of India's most thriving entrepreneurs, one of India's most successful entrepreneurs, India's coffee man. Today's story, and the only story that matters outside of what we saw in the markets, is VG Siddhartha.
Story coming in from the south today, where Cafe Coffee Day founder VG Siddhartha has gone missing.
SM Krishna के दामाद लापता बताए जा रहे हैं.
First up, a massive search operation has been launched to trace Cafe Coffee Day owner and BJP leader SM Krishna's son-in-law.
I don't expect that he would have gone to a stage of even suicide. I expect some fishy in this.
Where is the Cafe Coffee Day founder VG Siddhartha? He's gone missing since yesterday. Reportedly left his car with a driver in it near a bridge in Mangalore, and then he asked his driver to sit in the vehicle and would be back in 30 minutes. When VG Siddhartha did not return, the driver allegedly panicked, but VG Siddhartha's phone was switched off. The driver then went to inform the family. A massive search operation has been on since then. Today morning, a letter surfaced, which was circulated and went viral on WhatsApp and seen as VG Siddhartha's suicide letter, in which he claimed that he failed to create a profitable business model despite his best efforts. The letter further said Siddhartha was facing harassment from former income tax officials and was under pressure from a private equity fund. The rescue operations are still underway. But ladies and gentlemen, there is a massive twist. As they say, kahani mein twist. So you have this massive search operations underway. The Congress party slamming the government for tax harassment. Remember, VG Siddhartha is no ordinary businessman. Yes, he set up Cafe Coffee Day, but he is also the son-in-law of former Karnataka Chief Minister. There is a political connection as well. And about 30 minutes ago, the Income Tax Department has come out with a press release, and that is the kahani mein twist, in which the Income Tax Department says the signature of the alleged suicide letter doesn't tally with VG Siddhartha's signatures in the annual reports. Goes on to say that VG Siddhartha has admitted to unaccounted cash of over 300 crore rupees. The Income Tax Department says that VG Siddhartha and Cafe Coffee Day came under the scanner after political operations and political searches had been carried out. So that is the latest kahani mein twist. We don't know where VG Siddhartha is. Rescue operations are, of course, on in that lake. VG Siddhartha, in a letter allegedly signed by him, has not just blamed the tax department and the private equity fund, but also said all decisions must stop with him, that only he is responsible for any financial mismanagement. The auditors didn't know, the board didn't know, his family didn't know. The buck stops with him. This is, as we call, the sensational story that has been playing out since today morning. I'm going to go across to my, before we go any further, let's actually go across and get you an old interview of VG Siddhartha. This goes back to a few years. It's about 2 minutes, but he's the man of the hour. He's the man that all kinds of investigative agencies are looking out for. Here's an edited excerpt of that interview.
And next 5 years, I told every investor that we are not going to put any money other than expansion of the coffee business. We are convinced a lot of investors on that. I'm sure that next 5 years, we'll build a great coffee business from this here.
And as the issue opens, what kind of response are you expecting? Very optimistic, nervous?
See, tell you honestly, I'm not nervous at all. In life, I'm always a born optimist. I think we'll get a good response.
Right. In terms of the India consumption story itself, a couple of years back, there was a sense of pessimism in the market. Now, how are you viewing it? Do you see discretionary spend going up? Because that would, be an important factor in determining the business that you are in.
See, Chandra, I told you a long time back also. In '96, if you had asked me, I would have said India will take 15 stores, including my competition.
Right.
Today, I'm telling you, in the next 5 years, including my competition, will be 5,000 stores. Why should we be pessimist in life? You tell me that. If you are pessimist, we can't do anything.
Right.
India will give great opportunity. I feel next 30 years of India will be a great opportunity for all of us. We'll build a great India brand from here.
Internationally, what potential do you
See, we are the only brand which is owned by Indian company. And see here, all the food and coffee brands are owned by American companies or the European companies. I think we will also one day, it may be 10 or 15 years down the line, we'll make India proud and we'll start getting a franchisee income for Indian companies from abroad.
Right, right,
That's our
right,
dream.
right. So in the few years that I've known you, you've been extremely reclusive, very difficult to really catch. But now you've taken this baby that you've preserved, for so long into the glare of the public eye. How is your own strategy going to change going forward? Are we going to see a different Siddhartha going forward?
No. I think this company is completely managed by professionals. It will be managed by professionals. I'm only a support for them from the back. All the strategy and all I'll work on. Day-to-day management, we got a great team to manage, and I'm really proud of my team.
That's an interview that dates back to October 14th, 2015. Today, a letter has been circulating on WhatsApp. A letter which, incidentally, the board of directors of Cafe Coffee Day Enterprises, it's called, have issued to the stock exchange as well. He goes on to say that the buck stops with him. He got tired. He's failed as an entrepreneur. His auditors, his family never knew all that was going on. But importantly, his assets outweigh the liabilities. We'll get to all of that in just a bit. But let me go across to my colleagues, Rahul Dhyama in Bengaluru, as well as Ruchi Bhatia in New Delhi. Ruchi is going to be telling us about the Kahani Mein twist, the tax department new angle which has come in. Rahul Dhyama, let me come to you first. You've had a busy day. It came to be known today morning that we don't know where VG Siddhartha is. It was believed that he's actually jumped off a bridge and claimed his life because he's being harassed.
That's right, Nantara. It began, it was all really last night, and you've described this, the events really, so I won't get into the details. But all eyes were also on the CCD board to clarify on the alleged letter that was doing the rounds. As you rightly said, spoke about pointed fingers towards the harassment from tax department, a particular PE player, liquidity crunch at CCD, and sort of ended saying, I have failed as an entrepreneur. Of course, there are questions around corporate governance also that will really come up in the coming days. But back to the focus and the company stand on the matter, an emergency board meet was called. And if you really go by the statement, they also say that they did review a copy of the letter as allegedly signed by VG Siddhartha. Of course, Ruchi will also talk to us about what the tax department maintains on the authenticity of this letter. But the board has bought the letter before the exchange and shareholders, because remember 20% of really investor value was wiped out from the company earlier today. They have also attached a detailed summary value of assets that VG Siddhartha had drawn. It talks about the possible talks they're having with ITC and Coke as far as the vending machine side of business is concerned, the coffee plantations, Mindtree stake sale as well. So the company really putting it out in the open, but questions continue to really remain as far as the authenticity of the letter is concerned.
Okay, so that's, and before I go across, Ruchi, and Rahul, stay with us. I want to come back to you and talk to you about the operations which are underway. We believe it's raining, though I can't see it raining at the Cafe Coffee Day spot that you're at. But jokes aside, I'm going to come back to you for the weather update and as far as the update on the rescue operations go. But Ruchi, this is what you call a classic Kahani Mein twist. All day social media has been talking about how it is the tax official departments which led to VG Siddhartha jumping off a bridge. And now is the tax department saying this letter is perhaps not even real? Something as basic as signatures are not tallying with the annual report. So while we wait for the board of directors to react to this, that is seriously one big twist in this sensational saga.
Nantara, the plot thickens with respect to VG Siddhartha going missing. It of course needs to be seen, Nantara, that you cannot expect the tax department to say that, well, yes, we harassed VG Siddhartha because of which all of this has happened. So which is why they have put out, after the almost the entire days of back and forth and action of what happened, what did not happen. They have the Bangalore department, the Bangalore wing of the tax department has put out an 11-point press release. What they are essentially saying is, point number one, that they are saying that they are raising questions on the authenticity of the note that has been doing the rounds on WhatsApp since morning. They are saying that the signature is not tallying with the signature that is there in the annual reports of Coffee Day Enterprise. The second point that they are talking about is they are talking about a political angle being involved. They are saying that there were some search operations that the IT department conducted some time ago, and under that they found out there was some political link of a Karnataka-based leader. There are talks about how this leader in question could be DK Shiva Kumar, who in fact in the morning also gave out a soundbite where he did say that VG Siddhartha had requested him for a meeting as well. The second point, of course, is when these search operations were being conducted, there is a role of a Singapore-based national that has been found, and the IT department has also said that there was unaccounted cash of unaccounted income of 362.11 crore rupees as well as 118.02 crore rupees. So unaccounted income has also been found out. The third bit is, where the tax department has said that Coffee Day Global Enterprise has also not paid the self-assessment tax of 14.5 crore rupees. So they are talking about that there are assessment years between 2012-2013. They are talking about that period during which the respective taxes were not paid to the tax department. And before I wrap up, Nantara, they've also raised the questions with respect to why and how the Mindtree shares were also undertaken by the tax department.
You stay with us. I'm going to go across to noted tax expert TP Oswal, who's now joining us on the phone line to talk about this sensational case. Mr. Oswal, today morning, we've all heard about the harassment of the tax officials, which was seen along with the harassment from a private equity investor for VG Siddhartha doing the unthinkable, which is of jumping from a bridge. We still don't know where VG Siddhartha is. Nobody knows where he is. Rescue operations are underway. There is a heavy rainfall in Bengaluru, which is impacting all of that. But the tax department, about 40 minutes back, has come out with a sensational claim saying it doubts the authenticity of the letter, of the alleged suicide letter, which is being doing the rounds, that even the signatures don't tally between what is on the letter and of the annual report. Come in on that, Mr. Oswal, because we've seen the stock exchanges also getting a copy of this letter from the board. Can it really be something as simple as signatures not tallying and the board missing that? Let's reconnect with Mr. Oswal. I'm going to ask my producers to do that. Perils of live television, bad mobile networks as well. We'll do that, but now let me come to you. There was reports of heavy rainfall. I'm going to ask my producers to also show you the footage of the kind of rescue operations that have been on since morning. Ladies and gentlemen, just look at that. You will see how on rafts there are people carrying out a search operation. Those visuals coming up for you on your screens, and we still don't know where VG Siddhartha is. But important to note also, Rahul, that this has now taken a political turn as well. The tax department, the subtext of what it is saying, that the search operations had been carried out earlier on political establishments, that's a direct charge at Shiva Kumar.
Yes, Nantara, firstly, coming to the search operations itself, it's going to be 23 hours now that VG Siddhartha allegedly went missing from that particular bridge on a national highway off river Netravati in little outskirts of Mangalore really. As far as the rescue operations are concerned, we have seen Coastal Guard ships, we have seen the Navy also really step up. The Karnataka CM, of
Right.
course,
The
earlier
Navy has come in. We are seeing those images on our screens, visuals that are coming in from Karnataka. Rahul, just hang in with us because TP Oswal is back with us. TP Oswal, we don't know where VG Siddhartha is. Nobody knows. We are seeing visuals on our screens about how the operations are still being carried out in Mangaluru. But look at the Kahani Mein twist. The tax department, which has been facing a lot of ire from the public on social media, now says that the alleged suicide letter probably is not authentic because the signature doesn't even tally with what has been signed by VG Siddhartha in annual reports. Now, this sounds so basic, TP Oswal, that I've got to think that either the tax department is wrong or the board is wrong. The board has also released this letter.
You see, tax department don't have to see annual return filed by the company. Tax department has its own personal return, and in that return, what is the signature, that should be seen and that should be compared. But in any case, the issue is very interesting twist. Kahani mein twist. You rightly said, income tax department does not come out with a clarification so quickly. That itself should smell some smell test should apply here. How is that the income tax department in this particular case is coming out very so swiftly and clearly within 10 hours of the declaration made by the publicly made by people, the Siddhartha's declaration. I don't know whether he is still alive or not, but if he is dead, then the declaration is definitely very, very valuable. Because a person who has died and made a declaration, if he is alive, then he can be questioned further. But the issue is he has clearly alleged particular persons with the designation. He has not named it, but the designation is very clearly written. It is the Director General Investigation, Bangalore, and therefore the allegations are on that person, and therefore he must have answered this question because he is retiring tomorrow. Because he is retiring tomorrow, he has hurriedly given this reply on behalf of the Income Tax Department. I believe this requires serious investigation, and CBI should investigate this matter. And I have my reason to believe that there is no reason for Siddhartha to say something wrong when he has made such a declaration which is almost before the death of the person. Hello?
You know, you're saying that the Director General investigation, Mr. Ostwal, coming back to you, you're saying that because the Director General investigation is retiring tomorrow, he's come out with this hurried response. I'm playing devil's advocate here. His hands were tied. If you have a massive search operation in which the Navy is also being involved, how can the Income Tax Department stay silent? Coming to my second part, Mr. Oswal, this is political. VG Siddhartha is the son-in-law of the former Karnataka Chief Minister. If you go through what has been written by the Income Tax Department, it says Siddhartha admitted to 360 crore rupees of unaccounted wealth. That VG Siddhartha as well as Cafe Coffee Day came under the tax department scanner after certain search operations had been carried out in Karnataka. That's a direct hit also by the Income Tax Department against Shiva Kumar and the Congress party. This entire case is also political in nature, Mr. Oswal, or am I wrong on that?
I agree with your view that this is a political case. There is no doubt on that because people involved are all politicians. Karnataka is known for that. But the issue is not this. The issue is Income Tax Department take the declaration when they go for a search. They do not return back to their office till they compel a person to make a declaration. And the declaration are astronomical figures these days. And therefore, when they take a declaration and then thereafter they leave premises, and afterward what happens, that should be told to the public. 90% of the declarations made by the people who have been searched, they retract. They go back saying that this is a forced declaration. We have under the coercion made a declaration and therefore we withdraw our declaration. And the settlement commission and the appellate authorities have accepted. Because the issue, I do not know about this particular case, therefore I refrain from commenting on this case. But my experience in last 41 years of my practice, I have come across the declarations are retracted by the taxpayer when they make a declaration under coercion. because they take a declaration at 4 o'clock in the morning. After 48 hours or 60 hours of interrogation, whole family is separated. Whole family is kept in different rooms. They are not allowed to meet. They are not allowed to take proper food. They are not allowed to take sleep. And if that be the case, I think the declaration made by a person who has almost, I don't know about whether his situation today, but assuming the news is traveling, which says he has died, if this is the case, the death declaration of a person is very valuable, very important. It must be given due importance.
Mr. Oswal, we are all waiting for any information on that front. But then from what you're saying, that, usually a lot of these admissions, confessions are taken under duress, basically sub and substance. That's what you're saying. After a lot of duress, you're forced to make these kind of admissions. But then, Mr. Oswal, the question I also want to ask you in this particular case, when the tax department on record talks about political raids against politicians, which led to the CCD link, which led to the link with VG Siddhartha, the fact that, he's also the son-in-law of the former Karnataka chief minister, tax department says signatures are not tallying. Are you also saying the powers are so great with the tax department that it can make such claims and not be held accountable?
Well, accountability is missing in the tax department. None of the laws can force them to be held responsible. The most worst thing in this country is accountability of the government officials. We have been making representations, and every commission which is set up for the simplification of income tax law, we said bring some accountability for the tax department so that at least they will behave rationally, humanly with the people. Now, this is not only this, the people even use the third degree techniques by beating people. The tax department does this in the search process. So therefore, human element is very important. That should be brought in. This is a very high profile case. I can understand that, what you are saying, because lots of political angle is involved. But let me honestly tell you, they make mountain out of nothing, mole. They make huge declaration. For example, a diary is found and some one figure is written against a particular name. They will say it is 100 crores. How does it, without proving, without anything, and then they will threaten a person, admit, otherwise we will do this, we will do that, we will take a consequential action. They will not allow. We are closing down your operations. We are putting a seal on your business. This is not the way. People, this is a civilized country, we call. Behave like a civilized person. And just because, in how many cases they may come out with a declaration, answer to such a public revelation of declarations. They are coming out for the first time in my life, I am seeing. And that too, you are saying 12 pages declaration given by the BG. It means man must be, there must be something, some smoke, there has to be fire without which the smoke cannot come. And therefore, the person who is making such a declaration itself, he must be also in a tremendous pressure that some story should be created and the public misguidance should take place. Otherwise, he will be subject to a lot of inquiries. And in my opinion, this whole episode requires serious investigation by CBI.
Okay, you're calling for the CBI's intervention as well. The CBI must swing into action as well. Part of the income tax letter that has, a press statement that has come out today, Mr. Oswal, also talks about the Mindtree transaction. Remember, it was VG Siddhartha who had approached LNT at least on 3 occasions to sell for the takeover of Mindtree, something the other co-founders were never on board with. That conversation, plus of course, where is VG Siddhartha, coming up after this short commercial break. The big story of the day outside of the bears gripping the Lal Street is VG Siddhartha, celebrated as India's coffee man, one of the most celebrated entrepreneurs with a political connection. Remember, the son-in-law of the former Karnataka chief minister, missing since yesterday. Massive rescue operations underway, which involve the Navy as well. There's been a kahani made twist Whereas VG Siddhartha in an alleged suicide letter blamed tax authorities, blamed a private equity investor. The tax department says this letter is probably not even authentic. Now, VG Siddhartha has admitted to unaccounted cash. In that statement, the tax department also brought up Mindtree and said Mindtree sale was also not, the tax was not paid as it should have been. While we're talking about Mindtree, remember that hostile takeover by LNT, it had been initiated only after we had seen VG Siddhartha go to AM Nayak 3 times. And it was after 3 times that AM Nayak agreed that LNT could look at buying out Mindtree's co-founder's stake. We're going to play you that soundbite of AM Nayak very shortly, but I'm going to go across to a stalwart of industry. She hails from Bengaluru, Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, joining us here on Startup Central. Good evening. This is Nayanthara Rai in New Delhi. Ma'am, I know you spoke with the channel in the morning. That's when the news had just broken that VG Siddhartha perhaps has taken the step of hurting himself, jumping from a bridge, taking his own life because he was being harassed by private equity investor. He was being harassed by tax department officials and felt that he had failed and he took this step. The tax department now, in a Kahani Mein twist, says this letter is perhaps fake, that VG Siddhartha has admitted to unaccounted wealth of more than 300 crore rupees, that the Mindtree transaction tax had also not been paid. If I could get your reaction on this, it's becoming political in nature as well.
Well, first and foremost, it's both shocking and very, very sad that, Siddharth was, it led him to this kind of take an extreme step of of this sort. I mean, it's extremely shocking. And of course, corporate India is absolutely stunned with this kind of news. Now, coming to, all the various sinister details that you're talking about, I really don't want to comment since I really don't understand all the details in a very authentic way. But suffice to say that his letter seems to sort of basically reflect a sense of hopelessness and helplessness in terms of the way he could rescue his company is what it appears. And I think for the tax authorities to put a different twist to it is, at this point in time, is really not becoming. I think right now we have to make sure that whether the rescue operations are, going to yield any kind of positive information or not is something which we need to look at. But assuming that he has taken his life, I think is a very, very sad day. I think my thoughts are with his family, and that's what I can say, that, we need to really get the details of what has happened before we should really jump in and make comments.
So, I totally agree with you. We should not rush in, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here, Ms. Shaw, and say that we should not jump to conclusions from either side. From the letter's perspective, which we don't know the authenticity of, or what the tax department is also claiming. Having said that, Ms. Shaw, if a person does do this, can it really just be because of tax harassment? Can it really be because a private equity investor is putting pressure? One is, there obviously has to be more at play, right? Because there has to be a serious level of depression. So while, on social media, we all are blaming tax department officials, the larger question also needs to be talked about, and which we don't do, whether on news channels or whether as, industry representatives, is about the pressure of running a business, the mental pressure that comes with it.
No, absolutely. I don't think it is just one of, aspect of what has caused this. I think there are multiple kind of, pressures he has faced. First and foremost, for someone to take his life must have really been a very, very extreme step. Secondly, I think he must have faced, pressure from the banks. He must have faced pressure from whatever he has claimed in his letter, the private equity firm, whether it is the income tax officer or the enforcement directorate. I think he has faced massive pressure from all fronts. And I think when he saw no signs of recovering from this financial stress and the kind of trauma he must have gone through, that he decided to take his life. Because I think no one would take one's life if there was some hope or some way of resolving these kind of issues.
Kiran Majumdar-Shah, then, from the other perspective, because we're playing devil's advocate, if you go by what the tax department is saying, the letter is perhaps not even authentic, that unaccounted wealth has been admitted to by VG Siddhartha. And let's not forget, he is the son-in-law of a former Karnataka chief minister. Tax department says he, along with Cafe Coffee Day, came under the scanner after recent tax raids had been carried out against perhaps Mr. Shiva Kumar. It's taking a very ugly, very murky twist as well. One can't help but feel that, yeah, all was clearly not well. All was not what it seemed to be at the company.
But would you take your life even if it was what you say it is? I mean, maybe there was some, undeclared wealth or whatever. But I'm sure, being, savvy as a businessman and connected with a political family, surely, there was some hope of resolving these kind of issues without having to take one's life, So it's very sad. I mean, it just seems to indicate that. And as for anyone to say that this letter is not an authentic letter, how do they know? No one can make a claim one way or another.
And that's really the sad part of the times that we live in, right? Because we don't know fake news from genuine news. It's a conversation that we have every day, Kiran Majumdar-Shah. The question I also want to ask you is the kind of solidarity that we're likely to see among industry representatives, stalwarts of India Inc., like yourselves. Is that something? Have you guys been talking to each other?
Haven't certainly talked to anyone because I've been at work the whole day. But all I can say is it is very shocking. I think everyone in India Inc. is stunned with the news. And, I really think that, the government needs to engage with the business sector to find out how serious this financial stress is for India Inc. Because I think we do need a health check. I think many, many companies are over-leveraged. I think there will be many such cases of being forced, being harassed by the tax authorities or by the enforcement directorate. I think we are hearing about umpteen number of companies being investigated. And it is harassment. Maybe some people can take the harassment better than others. Maybe Siddhartha was too soft. He could not take this, investigation and this harassment that he possibly experienced.
No, you're basically also believing that we must watch ourselves. We should not have ever, today one did think of 1929 and the Great Depression in the United States, right? Because you're hearing of so many companies that are likely to fail, the kind of large debts that we're talking about, whether the NBFCs will ever come out of this crisis, the harassment, many of them also face. So Kiran Majumdar-Shah, before I let you go, the one sense that I'm getting from you is that you are not convinced at all by the tax department's letter, which has come out about 45 minutes to an hour back. You do believe that Siddhartha probably had to took his life because of the kind of harassment that he faced.
There may be and some truth to what the enforcement director is saying. I don't want to, challenge that finding of the tax authorities. But nevertheless, I think for them to deal with an individual to the extent that he takes his life, I think someone has to be questioned. Somebody has to be asked, why did he take his life and why did he name you? I think that's something which has to be investigated.
Yeah. Right. Kiran Majumdar-Shah, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for putting all of this in perspective for us. A stalwart of industry who has seen so many up cycles as well as down cycles with a very candid view over there. It is, of course, a shocking set of events. We all woke up this morning asking, where is VG Siddhartha? We saw a letter being circulated on WhatsApp which has gone viral, in which he has blamed the tax department and a private equity investor for being a failed entrepreneur. He has absolved the rest of his board from any responsibility, along with the auditors and his family. That's the latest as far as this goes. We're going to be getting you a lot of reactions, but the tax department has, of course, said that this letter is not real. The signatures don't even match with the annual filings of VG Siddhartha. It has also brought up the Mindtree acquisition, the hostile takeover of LNT of Mindtree, the most hostile ones we've seen in recent times. And the reason LNT ever looked at it was because of VG Siddhartha. It was VG Siddhartha who not once, not twice, but thrice went to the LNT chairman AM Nayak wanting to sell out. Before I go across to my next set of guests who are joining us from Bengaluru, here's AM Nayak, the top boss of LNT, on his interaction with VG Siddhartha on why it is they ever even looked at the hostile takeover of Mindtree. This is an interview that goes back to May 2019.
We never were hostile to them. We were always good to them. We never went for hostile takeover. As I mentioned to you a little while ago, it was the other shareholder who came to sell. He came 3 times. We did not buy. But when he came and said, we want our employees in good hands, and L&T is by Forbes magazine #1 employer and place to work within India. And therefore, I would like company like L&T to really buy this 20%. And therefore, our employees should be really happy.
Correct.
And finally, on 3rd occasion, we decided to buy.
Okay, so that's an interview I had done with the L&T top boss in May 2019, where he was very candid, saying the only reason L&T ever looked at Mindtree was because of VG Siddhartha, who went to AM Nayak on 3 different occasions and said he wants the employees of Mindtree to be in safe hands. Read it for yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. That was in May, where L&T chairman told us how VG Siddhartha was concerned about the employees. How long back does this go? We don't know where VG Siddhartha is, and we at ET Now are not going to be speculating. We've told you he's missing. There's a search operation on. The Navy is involved. There's a letter that has been circulated, an alleged suicide letter, which in a Kahani Mein twist, the tax department says is perhaps not even authentic. I'm going to go across to my next set of guests. Sumit Jain, co-founder and CEO of Common Flow, joining us on Skype, as well as Srijit Mulaya on Skype. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Sumit, I'm going to come to you first. I want to get a reaction from you folks. You know, both of you have age on your side. You know, we come to you on Startup Central as the young entrepreneurs, the young investors, all of that. Now, VG Siddhartha, and of course, age is relative. I can see Srijit laughing. But jokes aside, Sumit, you know, in Bengaluru, where you also come from, obviously the reaction has been extremely shocking. VG Siddhartha was looked up to. Here is a man who arrived, right? He was the coffee man. He had all of these outlets. He was the largest coffee retailer chain. He was the man that everybody wanted to beat, whether it's barista or whether it was Starbucks. He had plantations overseas. He also had good connections. You know, he was a son-in-law of the former chief minister of Karnataka. He had, if you can say, everything going for him, including a recent sale of his Mindtree shares to L&T, from which he profited over 2,000 crore rupees. And then you see what you see today. What are folks like you thinking, Sumit?
I think I don't know much about the political connection, corporate mismanagement, and financial irregularities you're talking about. But what was shocking for me was to look at somebody of that stature, like VG Siddhartha, actually taking that extreme step. Because I remember when we started Common Floor, we actually attended an event where Subrata Bakshi was there on the stage, and VG Siddhartha joined us through video conferencing. And I'm sure that millions of people heart is broken and hopes are broken when we see that somebody of that stature can take a step like that. And actually it makes us introspect that what could have gone wrong. And I think it is probably something to do with the society, that how do we handle pressure? How do we handle stress? And how can irregularity like in a business like this can let the promoter take a step which is so extreme? Is it something related to failure, stress, or is it something related to the way we handle failures through government, through whatever political department or the compliance department? I think it is definitely a point which we should make us introspect and try to create a society which accepts failures.
Right. Okay. Just let me come to you. In the morning, we were hearing, and you were part of those ranting against the tax department. I read your tweets, where you bring up this point: what hope is there for someone like you if the son-in-law of the former Karnataka chief minister has taken his life because of this? But there is a serious kahani mein twist. The tax department, in black and white, in a public statement, has said the alleged suicide letter is perhaps not authentic. Something as basic as signatures are not matching, that VG Siddhartha in the past has admitted to unaccounted wealth of over 300 crore rupees, that the Mindtree sale of shares, the tax is not matching the way it should be. There's obviously more that meets the eye. It's murky. It's also political in nature. The tax department only swung into action because of some other political raids it had carried out in Karnataka. Are you willing to review the stance you had taken this morning on Twitter?
No, so what I meant in my tweet was general, that that we have been facing group of entrepreneurs on angel tax, and we know how difficult it is to answer questions which are purely by the books of tax authorities, which is very personal. So I don't want to comment on the way he reacted to that stress. But what I would want to pick up is there is going to be stress, which all of us know. But if a person of VG's stature, who has actually is the person behind even Infosys stocks getting the attention when it got listed, or getting minded, that kind of a person could not handle that stress. So think about, again, I don't want to again compare a 2,000 crore stress with a 2 crore stress or a 40 lakh stress. Stress is stress. So what I meant is that the whole entrepreneurship is a stressful journey. So probably we aren't open enough, as probably Sumit pointed it out. We don't know when to call for help. If VG, who is such celebrated entrepreneur, could not call out for help, okay, and as by his letter, he has more assets than the liabilities, and then in that situation, if he had to take that extreme stress, that means his issue, he could not call out for help. So what I would want to stress upon is there are budding entrepreneurs who just started off, who has been doing for quite a few years. The stress level is there from day one till even after exit. Like if even after exit, VG had to go through this partially from Mindtree. So stress is there throughout. So probably as society, as Sumit has put in, we should be open to call out for help. A lot of Twitter. There are a couple of psychologists whom I follow in psychiatrists I would follow in Twitter, who has been telling that people should be open in calling out for help. If VG could not, okay, who else can? Because he, as per his letter, has more assets than liabilities. So what I would want to highlight from this situation is, we need to be open out to tell that I'm stressed, I need help, right? So everybody goes through stress. I would not want to call out that there is stress only coming from tax authorities. There is stress from customers. There is stress from market. There is stress from investors. There is stress all across, right? So we would probably need to have an ecosystem driven calling out.
My point is that you don't jump off a bridge. My point is that if you are depressed enough to think that you're going to take your life, the problem has to be bigger than harassment from a tax department official or from a private equity investor. Your ability to not handle that kind of stress. We don't talk enough about mental health. We don't talk enough about pressures, not just on founders, but even on employees. It does happen. On students, it does happen. Sumit, if I can come back to you. While VG in this letter, this alleged suicide letter, which, as I've been calling it a kahani mein twist the last 60 minutes, the tax department says is perhaps not even real. And something as basic as the signatures are not tallying with what the tax department has from its records and what we have seen in the letter today, which incidentally the board has released to the stock exchanges. It then talks about the assets and liabilities. VG has said that the liabilities are smaller than the assets, but absolved the blame from the family, from the board, from the auditors. Is it going to be really as simple as that? If there is going to be any alleged financial mismatch, which this letter alludes to, how can the buck only stop with the founder, and that too of a listed entity?
to you is that why should the buck even kind of stop at the founder? And it means why should the founders alone should be held accountable? Why should not like we should not decriminalize business failures, financial irregularities, corporate mismanagement? I think we are just going too overboard with these things because if there is a financial problem, if tax has to be paid, like the assets can be liquidated, right, and they can be paid against it. But what led to harassment, right? It is very clear that Siddhartha is willing to let assets go against liabilities. It means it was not about the inability to pay. I think it was about the circumstances, the small things which got built up, or the way that the things got treated. I think it's not about the inability or I would say the company going bankrupt. I think it is about the way authorities probably would have dealt with him and he would have felt harassed. I think we cannot really rely on what the income tax department is talking about or what the letter is talking about. Obviously, the matter has to be looked into it a lot deeply and investigated, the signatures and the political drama we're talking about here. But I think that right now, the most important thing is that somebody is missing, and obviously the operations are out there trying to find it out. I think we are jumping on the gun and we're trying to decide or conclude or bring the twist in the kahani as you're talking about.
No, we are not doing that at ET now. We are not doing that at ET now. We are not doing that at ET now. We are very simply asking, where is VG Siddhartha? He is missing. According to the driver, something went murky. There have been reports that he jumped off the bridge. There's been allegations of an alleged suicide letter. The IT department is saying there is no such thing. His body has not been found. He's not been found dead or alive. We are not jumping to conclusions here on ET now, and we have refrained from doing that as a responsible organization through the day. We are waiting for official confirmation. Let me come back to you. You know, you brought up mental stress, you brought up harassment by the tax department. You've covered a lot of this. What you have not covered is the murky political angle behind this. There's something which doesn't meet the eye.
And so I don't have information on to talk about the political angle, but I would just still stretch it further ahead on the content of letter, which is.
I'm not asking you for information.
So for me, the crux of that letter is one line: I'm a failed entrepreneur. That is a reputational stress, right? Beyond the assets and liabilities, there is one fear that I, as a persona, is this, and my persona is going to be tarnished if this comes out, or if people come to know about this. That's a stress which we usually don't talk about. That is a stress which is building up in last 5-6 years thanks to social media. So that is a stress, and that's a stress which has led to a lot of suicides in past or in present day. Okay, so we as of now have not started talking about that purely an entrepreneur being a startup central show. There's a huge such reputational stress, that fear, right? That's the crux of that letter. I'm a failed entrepreneur. To me, he's not a failed entrepreneur. He is a stalwart behind a successful IPO listing for Infi. He's a stalwart behind Mindtree. Many startups he has funded, and he has created 1,000 store plus CCD, right? And I've got few batchmates who joined from campus with me, and they're still there in CCD. They have huge respect for VG. So for me, he's not a failed entrepreneur. No entrepreneur for me is a failed entrepreneur. Anybody who started the plunge is a successful entrepreneur. So that fear of losing that reputation is a tremendous stress which gets built. Probably as an ecosystem members, we need to help everybody in the system talk about it and come out. That fear of losing that reputational fear. So
okay, gentlemen, I'm going to ask you both to hang in there. I'm now going to get you an important voice. It's coming in from Rahul Bhasin. You see him often on ET now. He's going to be representing the private equity universe for us. Mr. Bhasin, thanks so much for joining us here on ET now. This is Nayanthara Rai. Rahul Bhasin, you know, what a day it's turned out to be, and, you know, full of twists. It began with reports of VG Siddhartha missing. The baby's claimed his life. There were allegations of a suicide letter. In that alleged suicide letter, VG Siddhartha, besides blaming the tax department, has also blamed a private equity fund, could not handle the pressure anymore, was being forced to buy back shares, which he didn't want to do, which incidentally the markets didn't know about either, this partial buyback of shares. And now the income tax department says the letter is probably not even authentic, the signatures are not tallying. VG Siddhartha has admitted to unaccounted cash of more than 300 crores already. Rahul Bhasin, full of twists and turns. We don't know where this story is going to end. We don't even know where VG Siddhartha is, whether he's alive, whether he's actually committed suicide. But look at the allegations he's making against the sector you represent, the private equity universe, facing so much pressure, buybacks the markets don't know about, that he considered claiming his life.
Nandara, I am in Bangalore. I've been in meetings since 7 a.m. in the morning. I have virtually just gotten out. So everything you're saying is literally news to me as we speak. And if this is true, then this is truly shocking. And, it's extremely unfortunate. I'm assuming the fact that you're asking me there must be some degree of veracity to it. But to be very honest, I have no idea about it. And if you're asking about the pressures of whether it's private equity or any kind of financing that people face, I would sort of hazard to guess that if it was an equity financing transaction, it's very unlikely that there would be that kind of pressure unless there were some quasi-debt structures involved. And I don't know who the lenders would be or the financiers would be, but it's really in debt structures where this kind of pressure would be there. But what I have noticed, and this is a pattern I don't know specifically in this incident, but what I have noticed is that there are a lot of people who, in good times, look at an infinite upside kind of scenario and lever themselves more and more on the basis of their expected change in valuations. And that has often gotten people into a lot of trouble. Whenever there's a downturn, I think if you look at the downturn right now, it's been sudden, it's been very sharp. A lot of valuations, other than for the absolute blue chips, have come off very sharply. So I can understand the pressures, and I don't think that this would be a standalone case. What if debt is on the basis of cash flows? It's one thing, but if debt is on the basis of expected increase in valuations, it can have its own kind of devastating consequences. Like I said, I don't know the specific facts of this case, but
say it, Rahul Bhasin. I hate to say it, but I remembered something. Rahul Bhasin, today I was reminded of another letter 10 years ago, which Ramalinga Raju had written, where he said he couldn't take the pressure anymore. It was like a tiger on his back, and this entire game of valuation. Today, VG Siddhartha has said he could not take it anymore. The pressure got to him. He's a failed entrepreneur. A private equity investor was forcing him to buy back shares. He was facing a liquidity crunch. The income tax department was harassing him. So, Rahul Bhasin, what I also want to get a sense is, and forget the quasi-debt. Will a private equity investor under normal circumstances force buyback of shares?
So, how can they? You're asking me a question.
Proves the fact that all was not well.
I beg your pardon?
But it itself... So if the very fact that if this letter is true and VG Siddhartha claims he was being forced to carry out a buyback of shares, it does allude, and I'm doing a 1 + 1 = 3, that, it all was not well, and maybe the transaction itself was suspect, or there were certain problems in the books of Cafe Coffee Day, right?
Well, look, I can tell you that if there's a lack of veracity or there's a lack of integrity in any process, there are always penal clauses. And it doesn't matter whether it's a lending transaction or a private equity transaction. Any kind of financing transaction will always have those kinds of situations. And I am not familiar with the context in this case, so I can't tell you specifically what is or what isn't. I guess somebody who's actually an investor in the company might be able to throw more light on that subject. But yes, there would be penal clauses if there was lack of transparency, integrity, or those kinds of things. But I have no idea whether that is relevant or germane in this specific context. But I think there is also a larger issue, and I think that that's a very unfortunate thing. What you're saying is that, potentially the gentleman has committed suicide or anything of the sort. That is rather unfortunate, and I think that that's That's a wider social issue where I think that if business decisions go wrong, we have a tendency in our country, and everybody does it, I would say, starting with the media, the regulators, etc., to criminalize, wrong business decisions or faulty business decisions. And I think that's a very unfortunate thing, because in a capitalistic structure, you will always have new businesses starting, you will have risks being taken which pay off and which don't. And I think that's a very unfortunate social sort of issue that I think that we all need to squarely look at in the eye and kind of deal with.
Correct. That's right. I think we don't know how this is going to, we don't know the end game as yet. We still don't know where VG Siddhartha is. Did he claim his life? Did he not? The rescue operations involving the Navy are still, the operations are still being carried out. There is bad weather in Bengaluru. The Income Tax Department is refuting what is being seen through most of the day as an alleged suicide letter. We're running out of time, but all I can tell my viewers is that stay tuned to ET Now. We're getting you all the facts right here, no sensationalism, no hype. Stick to ET Now. We're right on top of this story. Thanks for watching.